What's cracking, trainers? XehrFelrose here, bringing you some Pokemon GO Battle League content. Today's video is the Master League PvP IV deep dive for Dialga Origin form, because it's the third time this thing's been in raids, and we still can't guarantee the move on these for whatever reason other than the fact that they just want our money. Yet here we go anyway. We're going to be taking a look today at Origin form Dialga against the Master League meta, and we're also going to be looking at all three of its IVs from 12 to 14, comparing them to the 100% IV to see what we keep, what we drop, and what we need to avoid as we look at the best minimum recommended spreads for Dialga Origin in the Master League. As with all of my deep dives, some terms to know before we get in, assuming that you haven't seen these before, and we're going to bring you up to speed. Breakpoints are an attack stat point that allow you to do 1 additional damage in a given matchup via charge or fast move. Then we have bulk points, which are the inverse of a breakpoint, in which you have the defensive stat point that you have that allows you to take 1 less damage in a given matchup via fast or charge move. When we talk about the zeros, ones, twos, and any mix of the three, that's going to be shielding scenarios of how many shields you have versus the opponent, and this is going to assume all matchups are even shields and energy unless otherwise mentioned. When we talk about premium and thrift IVs, premium is going to be that best possible stat spread you can have without giving up anything. When we're looking at thrift IVs, those are going to give up some of those less common scenarios, but keeping the ones that we need to be able to let Dialga Origin function in the Master League the way it was meant to function. And when you see the double Bs, that's best buddy boost applied to a matchup. Overall, Dialga against the Master League, it has definitely fallen off since Crownzation and Zamazenta were implemented, but before that, Dialga was a top meta contender, having excellent levels of play into things like Kyurem, Palkia, destroying Kyogre, having good play against a lot of the fairies because of that Iron Head coverage definitely made it a very safe kind of dragon to bring into the Master League. However, now its losses are going to include some things like Rhyperior, which you're really not ever winning that anyway, unless you have Shield's advantage. We're also taking losses on both forms of Necrozma, and Landorus, of course, being a ground type, just kind of has its way with Dialga. Ho-Oh's also picked up as a loss for Dialga in the Master League, and Lunala, Solgaleo, and Yveltal also fill in that wins list. Fill in that losses list. Typically, you're going to see Dialga with Dragon Breath in the Master League. You might see some Chad running Metal Claw once in a while, but as far as charge moves go, Roar of Time and Iron Head are the best coverage options. However, if you're one of those unfortunate souls who have a hundo without Roar of Time, I would say Run Thunder instead. It has play. Hits the crown forms for neutral. Doesn't mean it's useless if it doesn't have the move. Hopefully one day they let us do that. In the Master League, we're going to be applying Best Buddy boost to Dialga and see how it flips things. This is going to be a Best Buddy Origin compared to the non-Best Buddy Origin Dialga. And as far as matchups go, all the mirrors are wins instead of ties, unless your opponent is Best Buddied. You're also going to be flipping the zeros against Garchomp with Mud Shot. Tapu Bulu, you get to maintain that matchup in the 0 to 1s, otherwise 2 Nature's Madnesses are enough to knock out after the Bullet Seeds. Genesect and Normal, Douse, and Shock all go from a loss to a tie in the 0 to 1s, so if your opponent's running one of those three, which they probably won't. Best Buddy Swampert also in the zeros is something that we pick up because that matchup is actually a literal 1 HP in a dream scenario for the Dialga. You live that Earthquake and the Mud Shots by 1 HP to get the knockout on the Swampert. Otherwise, it does flip that matchup by landing an Earthquake in the zeros. In the 1 shield matchups, we are flipping Primarina with Waterfall, as well as Best Buddy Dialga Altered, the old one, the got it at the mall Dialga that nobody runs anymore. In the 1-to-1s, and in the 2s, we're going to actually be able to grab the Solgaleo 2-to-0s and 2-to-1s, which Solgaleo usually dominates the Dialga matchup anyway, but it's nice to know that with the Best Buddy boost that those situations are possible. You're also grabbing all of the Dialga forms in the 2s, just regardless if you have the Best Buddy boost, and you're also going to be able to take a 2-to-1 shield win against Rhyperior, so if you have a shield advantage on Rhyperior, you can land that Iron Head and get the KO, which is pretty nice to have. Against opposing non-Best Buddy opponents, we're going to be grabbing bulk points against Palkia Origin, so best buddying against the Palkia does get you an extra 1 damage. Now, I will say that that is also dependent on them not having the Best Buddy boost, which if they have 14 or less defense, you do keep that, but if they have 15 defense on their Best Buddy Palkia, you do lose that regardless. And Shadow Dragonite, also something that if it's Best Buddied, we do get a break point against. We're grabbing defensive bulk points against non-Best Buddied Solgaleo, Como-o, and Primarina with Waterfall, and against the Best Buddy boosted opponents, we're going to be grabbing bulk points against Single Strike Urshifu with Sucker Punch, which shows up quite a few times in this video, as well as Rhyperior. And honestly, with the Best Buddy boost, we're kind of seeing a lot of the same things that are going to show up here, so a lot of these matchups are going to come back. But CMP ties, as far as what we've got with the Best Buddy boost, we're going to grab it over Kyogre, Groudon, and Origin Form Dialga. They'll also have the same 3 base attack, and Best Buddy is going to be the same list, no differences. All right, now for the nerdy stuff, we're going to be taking a look at Dialga's attack stat here in the Master League, and what are we dropping if we have to thrift on attack at all? 239.4 attack at 100% IV. We're dropping down to 14 attack. We're going to be adding CMP losses here. Again, charge attack priority tie losses to Dialga Origin, Groudon, and Kyogre, and we're going to be chalking up a breakpoint loss to Shadow Dragonite while we're also dropping the 0s and 2s to Dialga Origin and the Mirror. Pretty much you should expect if you have less than 15 attack, you're going to lose the Mirror, period. At 13 attack, all the same things here, except we're just adding Giratina Origin to the breakpoints that we're losing, and the exact same list here down at 12, except now we're adding Latios to the list of things that we lose CMP ties to. Now flipping the best buddy boost onto our opponents here, the only differences between a Hundo Dialga with 15 attack and these 14 attack, 13 attack, and 12 attack variants is just losing CMP ties to best buddy Latios and best buddy Giratina Origin as a breakpoint that we no longer get to have. Everything else is going to retain the same values in these matchups. Now, if we flip the script and have Best Buddy on our Dialga with the opponents not having Best Buddy, which most of the time is going to be the case here because the opponent can only have one Best Buddy at a time, so 2/3 of their opponent's team is going to end up likely falling under this bucket here if you Best Buddy your Dialga. CMP ties are unaffected, no matchups are affected at 14 attack. However, we always lose the breakpoint to Palkia Origin, which isn't going to flip the matchup, but it makes it a lot more dominant for Dialga. Down at 13 attack, we're going to be taking those CMP losses to Dialga Origin, Groudon, and Kyogre once again with breakpoints still lost to Palkia Origin, and we're going to be losing the Dialga Origin 0s and 2s with no matchups affected in the 1s. At 12 attack here, we're going to be chalking up Shadow Dragonite as the only thing that changes on this list from 13 attack as a breakpoint that we lose, and instead of a loss, Dialga Origin goes from a win to a tie in the 2s. Now, if we stick the Best Buddy boost, everything kind of seems to come back full circle here. We're going to be losing CMP to the Best Buddy Dialga Origin, Groudon, and Kyogre, losing the breakpoint to Shadow Dragonite ever still, and all even shield scenarios and the 1/2s to Dialga Origin. And that's something you can keep in mind whenever you're thrifting on the attack stat in just about any Pokemon regardless, is you're probably going to be losing the mirror situation because the opponents will likely have 15 attack. Down to 13 attack, the only thing that's really changing, we're still losing the 0s and 2s to Dialga Origin. Dialga Altered comes in as a 1 shield loss here, and Giratina Origin is a breakpoint that we're going to be losing. And down here at 12 attack, Latios, the only thing that changes from the 13 attack list as a CMP tie that we are now losing. So defense is one of the stats that usually we can thrift on. But let's see how it fares for Origin Dialga here. So down at 14 defense, we're losing bulk points to Sucker Punch, Single Strike, Urshifu, and Rhyperior. Rhyperior already kind of destroys our face, but it does cause us to lose the 2-to-1 shield scenario, and that's going to keep popping up here in the defense. You're losing Swampert because that's a 1 HP scenario difference that you need to either get the 1 defense or the 1 HP. And we're also taking a 1-to-2 shields loss to Zarude, as those Dark Pulses are going to do just enough to be able to take out our poor Dialga. Down to 13 defense, we're keeping the same bulk points, but Kyogre is hitting us for an extra 1 damage per waterfall now, which does allow it to flip a certain scenario in the 1-to-2s. Kyogre, without having Thunder or Blizzard, can flip the 1-to-2 shield situation. They have 2 shields, you have 1. That's one of those things where I'm kind of keeping an eye on that. Down at 12 defense, we're going to be adding a bunch more bulk points lost here to Groudon, Shadow Ho-Oh, Tapu Lele, and Excadrill, while losing matchups to Shadow Gyarados in the 1s and all the ones that we've mentioned up until this point. Now, against the Best Buddy opponents here, a lot of the things that were lower up on the list are going to come up. Let's see what we have to deal with here. With 14 defense, we're losing bulk points to the Shadow Ho-Oh, Kyogre, and Excadrill. Anything else that was on the previous list already got that just by being Best Buddy, even if we have 15 defense. But now you're losing both shield disadvantage scenarios against Kyogre, and I'm going to be honest, man, like Kyogre is one of those things where it's like Dialga has to be able to beat it, right? Because it's a dragon. So keeping in mind that the opponent having a Best Buddy Kyogre is usually pretty unlikely, but also possible. Just something to keep an eye out if you have to thrift on your defense at all. The opponent's Kyogre has a Best Buddy sticker. You just got to kind of try to play around that. Down to 13 defense, we're going to be taking losses here on our bulk points to both Groudon and Tapu Lele. They appear back up on the list. We're still losing those scenarios to Kyogre, but we're also adding Shadow Gyarados in the 1-to-1s and 1-to-2s as losses here now. Down to 12 defense, we're going to be adding Florges, Giratina Altered, and Yveltal to the list of bulk points that we're losing. And Florges actually able to flip the 2-to-2 shield situation with that breakpoint that it gets at the defense being that low. Giratina Altered in the 1-to-2s and Dialga Altered in the 1-to-1s are going to be things that we're adding to the list here. Nothing else gets added down at 12 defense though. Now, if we throw our best buddy boost onto Dialga against non-best buddied opponents, we're going to be losing bulk points to Solgaleo and Primarina with Waterfall, and losing the 1-to-1s against non-best buddied Waterfall Primarina, and losing the shield advantage 2-to-1s against Solgaleo. Solgaleo is going to be giving us even more trouble here, winning the 2-to-0s for any point forward with 13-to-12 defense. Rhyperior also showing up on the list of losses as well because of that bulk point that we lose to it, which is present here at 13 defense and lower. You're also going to be grabbing Komao and Single Strike Urshifu back on your list of things that are doing 1 extra damage for fast move. And down at 12 defense, we're going to be having pretty much the same bulk points here with a couple extra 0 shield matchups. We also saw that Tapu Bulu is now in the 0-to-1s, as well as the various Genesect forms. Those are present here alongside Garchomp in the 0s, and Zarude in the 1-2s being added to our 13 defense list down at 12. Now, if all of our opponents are going to be having the best buddy boost, we're just immediately taking the bulk point loss to Single Strike Urshifu and Rhyperior with just 14 defense. So this is something that you might want to keep in mind if you're going to be best buddying or not, that Rhyperior doesn't necessarily go away if it has the best buddy sticker equipped. Tapu Bulu in the 0-to-1s is now a loss right away at 14 defense because of that Nature's Madness hitting a second time, plus those Bullet Seeds, and we're taking the 2-to-0s and 2-to-1s losses to Solgaleo and Rhyperior respectively. Down at 13 defense, we're adding Kyogre to the list of bulk points. Garchomp wins the 0 shield situation. Kyogre gets that 1-to-2 shield situation where it has a shield advantage against us. And down at 12 defense, the list gets even bigger with Groudon, Shadow Ho-Oh, Tapu Lele, and Excadrill all being added back onto that bulk point list, with Swampert now also being able to grab the 0 shield situation, with the rest of the list being pretty much the same as the 13 defense list. All right, now we're grabbing a peek at Dialga's HP stat against non-best buddied opponents. And Dialga's one of the Pokemon that has the same HP value at 100% IV as well as having it at 14. So it's 184 HP, regardless whether you have 14 or 15 in your HP stat. It is a functional / pseudo hundo. However, if we drop down to 13 HP, we're taking that loss to Swampert because of that 1 HP situation. It can go either way if it's the defense or the HP that changes. Shadow Gyarados grabbing the 1s and 1-to-2s, and Ultra Dialga grabbing the straight 1s, with Zarude grabbing the 1-to-2s against us at 13 HP. And down here at 12 HP with 182 total, Dialga Origin is the only thing added to the list in the 1-to-1s, now being able to guarantee that matchup with 1 shield on either side. Against the best buddy opponents, however, very forgiving. 14 HP, no changes, of course. 13 HP just takes that 1 shield loss to Shadow Gyarados and Ultra Dialga, same as we had in the previous list. With 12 HP, now we're straight losing to Palkia Origin in the 0s because to get to that Spatial Rend, and it's going to be just enough HP for them to be able to KO. And we're also going to be grabbing those same losses to Shadow Gyarados, Ultra Dialga, and Origin. But also Kyogre grabs the 1-2 shield situation here as well, down at 12 HP if it has the best buddy boost. Best buddy boost. As far as our best buddy boost goes with non-best buddied opponents, down at 13 HP, you're going to be dropping that Tapu Bulu matchup, as well as the Genesect 0-to-1s and the Ultra Dialga 2-to-2 shield situation. Down at 12 HP, Garchomp is added to the list of things that we're now losing to in the 0s, and Zarude finds its way back here in the 1-to-2s again, with Dialga still being able to beat us in the 2 shield if it's altered form. And against best buddied opponents, everybody's got the best buddy boost equipped, and we're having a party. Garchomp and Tapu Bulu take 0 shield situation wins from us, and Solgaleo now gets to keep that 2-to-0 shield situation where we were able to take it with the 14 HP. Dialga Origin and Altered both take the 2 shield situation. And if we drop down as far as 12 HP, Shadow Gyarados comes back, and Swampert. So the final thoughts / verdict on Origin form Dialga. Now, the thing is that this 15, 15, 14, yes, it is the premium if you don't want to give up anything. All of these stats, you can realistically thrift down if you need to. The attack stat, I always recommend a 15 attack regardless, but you can go down as far as 12 because nothing really relevant at the moment is on the list of things that you give up by having Dialga with 12 attack. However, I would absolutely say you're going to need to bottle cap that thing at some point because having a 12 attack Dialga Origin is just asking for trouble when it finally comes back into the meta. Now, 15 defense is what I chose because it keeps the Rhyperior bulk point and the 2-to-1 shield scenarios from every situation that we could find, but you can go as low as 14 to keep Kyogre shield disadvantage matchups if you're okay with giving up the Rhyperior, because Rhyperior honestly just kind of smashes Dialga anyway, but it's nice to know that you at least have that win condition if you have a shield advantage with 15 defense. Can go down as low as 14 though if you want to keep Kyogre, and if you don't care about any of those, then you could drop your defense as low as you like, because honestly, honestly. There's nothing else that's really super relevant that gets affected by defense. 14 HP is the same as having 15 HP, and you can go as low as 13 to keep any non-best buddied mirror Dialga Origin scenarios in your favor, but 14 guarantees that we don't give up anything at all. Now, as far as best buddy boosting is concerned, 15 attack with the best buddy boost is still going to be needed here for mirror situations and is really recommended to guarantee we get that Palkia Origin form breakpoint if they're not best buddied or are thrifting it all on their defense. But otherwise, you can thrift your attack down to 14, I would realistically say, because nothing really gets affected by it. Rhyperior and Solgaleo still want to make us want to keep that 15 or 14 defense, even with the best buddy. But if you don't expect them to have the best buddy boost, or don't expect very many of them at all, you can go as far down as 12 or 13 if you don't mind losing some of those scenarios. 14 HP is again the same as having 15 with the best buddy boost equipped, but you can go as low as 12 because you don't drop any important matchups. But however, if you're going to try and focus at the current moment of recording, right now this meta is very centered around Palkia, Crown forms, and things that can try to beat those. So I would say that Kyogre, Rhyperior, Palkia, and the Mirror are the four most relevant things to be building your Dialgas around. So keep those in mind as you try to figure out whether or not yours is really good enough or not. But this is where I would go with a Dialga if I had to build one. And again, if you don't have one with Roar of Time, first of all, I'm sorry. You can build one with Thunder if you like, and it still will do fairly well in a lot of these situations. But as far as Dialga Origin and the Master League goes, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you as always for watching these deep dives. If you enjoyed them, leave a like, hit a comment to let me know what you'd like to see next, as I'm going to continue to try to do these for all three leagues, whatever's coming up and what's relevant, and also some stuff that's really, really expensive. And I'd like to hear your thoughts down as what you'd like to see next. I'm going to be trying to do things as they come out in raids if they're meta relevant, but otherwise I'll be trying to just kind of fill in the gaps with whatever you guys are suggesting. So be happy to hear from you down in the comments. As always, thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.